Hi, my name is Dr. Katherine Adams, and I will be your instructor for Introductory Psychology this semester. I'm excited to get to know all of you. I wanted to take a moment and first introduce a little bit about myself, and then I'll briefly walk through some key information about the course. Please make sure to watch the entire video, as at one point I'll tell you about an extra credit opportunity that you can take advantage of. I also wanted to quickly note that we have two wonderful teaching assistants for this course, Sahar and Michelle. They've both made welcome videos for you as well, and their contact information is available on our Canvas homepage. First, a little bit about me. I'm originally from Indianapolis, Indiana. For my undergraduate degree, I went to a small college called Butler University. If you're into NCAA men's basketball at all, you might have heard of them. Butler went back-to-back in the NCAA men's championship games in 2010 and 2011, which just so happened to be during my freshman and sophomore years there. So I definitely got into watching college basketball during that time. And even though my Bulldogs haven't made it back to the NCAA tournament in a few years, I still really enjoy watching and cheering them on. After Butler, I went to Purdue University, where I earned my PhD in social psychology, which I completed in 2019. I then had my first teaching job for 1 year at Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis, before I moved out to Virginia in June 2020, and I've been teaching psychology here at Virginia Tech ever since. When I'm not teaching, I enjoy checking out the Blacksburg Farmers Market, going for walks on the Huckleberry Trail, and of course, cheering on all of my now Butler, Purdue, and VT sports teams. On the right, you can see a picture of me, my housemate Tulu Otomayomi, and our friend Karen at my first ever VT football game. Now, a little bit about the course. I'll do a brief overview of some important points here, but you can check out more detailed information in our course syllabus. In fact, our first assignment, which you'll need to complete before you can move on to the other modules, is actually a short quiz over the syllabus, so make sure to take some time to review that information in more depth. First, this is an online asynchronous course, which means that there are no regularly scheduled lectures, either in person or virtually. Instead, you'll watch pre-recorded lecture videos, like this one, on your own. With this format comes both some blessings, such as increased flexibility, as well as some potential added challenges. In particular, you will need to be responsible for keeping up with the required lecture videos and readings for each week. Psychology is certainly a fascinating topic, and I do hope that you find the material in this course to be interesting and useful. But in the end, you will ultimately get out of this course what you put into it. Even though the course is online, I do ask that you take it seriously and commit to completing the necessary work each week, just like you would in an in-person course. The course is divided into 14 different modules or topical units, and we will cover one module each week. For each module, you'll need to watch about 2 to 5 lecture videos, as well as complete 1 to 2 readings. There is no required textbook for this course. Instead, your readings will come from a free resource called the NOVA project. At the end of each module, there is also a required quiz over that material with 8 questions worth 1/2 point each, or 4 points total. Each module quiz is required. For example, you have to complete the Module 1 quiz before you can move on to Module 2. There will also be 4 exams in this course, as well as a cumulative final at the end of the semester. However, your lowest exam score is dropped. Essentially, this means that you can use the final to replace a lower exam score if you're not happy with your grade. Since the exams are online, I am making them be OpenNote and OpenBook. However, you will need to complete them on Lockdown Browser with webcam and screen monitoring enabled. Because the exams are on Lockdown Browser, this means that you won't be able to pull up additional web pages or videos while taking the exam. So if you want to reference any notes during the exam, you'll need to have hard copies available. I would encourage you to actually sit down and take notes while completing the readings and watching the lecture videos, just like you would in a normal in-person class. This will hopefully help you to pay attention to the material while you are reading or watching it for the first time, and then it will also be a resource that you can reference when taking the exams. However, even though the exams are OpenNote and OpenBook, they are not easy. The exam questions are written so that you won't simply be able to look up the answers in your notes. Instead, questions will focus on your ability to apply concepts to examples. To study for exams, I would really encourage you to complete the Apply It and Test Yourself sections at the end of each module. Additionally, try to make your studying more active, such as by trying to teach someone else. Things like rereading and making a Quizlet can be a good start, but they are not the best way to study for more application-focused exams. If you have more questions about how to study, Please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Sahar, or Michelle. Finally, you are responsible for doing your own work on all quizzes and exams in this course. This also means that you should not use any AI resources, such as ChatGPT, while taking exams. If I discover an instance of cheating on a quiz or exam, it will be taken very seriously and could result in failing the course or further disciplinary action from the university if necessary. So here is our Canvas homepage. If you scroll down, you can see the welcome video, which obviously you're already watching, and the welcome videos for Michelle and Sahar. Here is kind of a weekly overview. So I'll update this at the start of each week with what module we'll be covering, anything you need to read, and anything that you need to complete. This week you'll need to do the syllabus quiz and the quiz for Module 1. If you want to kind of look ahead, you can go to our syllabus page. And then if you scroll down to the very end, you'll see our whole course schedule listed here. So again, if you kind of want to look ahead and see what's coming up in the schedule or when the exams are, so you can put those on your calendar, you can get all of that information there. But again, on the home page, you'll see just kind of this quick snapshot of where we will be going that week. Here are our course objectives. So this is what I hope by the end of the course that you'll be able to do after you have learned all of the material. Here are quick links to our course modules, which we will check out more here in a second. Here is contact information for myself, Sahar, and Michelle. So you can see our emails here. And the extra credit opportunity that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, if you email one of the three of us, any of the three of us, with your name, your year, your major, and a fun fact about yourself, we will be happy to give you a bonus point. So we would still love to meet some of you, even though this course is online. So if you email any of the three of us with that information, you can get a bonus point for doing that. And then you can also see information here about our office hours. Office hours are a time when we are available to answer questions that you might have about the course. This can be questions about how to study. Maybe there's a concept you're finding kind of challenging, you'd like to go over some more, or you'd like to go over a previous exam. We're happy to do that with you. My office hours are going to be Monday afternoons and Tuesday in the morning. You can come to my office hours either virtually or in person. So if you want to come in person, my office is located on the 3rd floor in Williams Hall. Williams Hall is off of the drill field right next to Burris. Or you can come on Zoom during those same times if you prefer. One quick note, sometimes I do forget to turn on my Zoom room. So I will try to be really good about that. But if you are trying to, if it's during my office hours and you want to meet with me virtually and Zoom says that I haven't started the meeting yet, just shoot me a quick email and I'll be happy to get that set up for you real quick. For Michelle and Sahar, they do have virtual office hours. If you want to meet in person with them, you absolutely can. They just need to know ahead of time so that they can reserve a space for that. So just email them to request an in-person meeting if you want, but otherwise they're always going to be available over Zoom during these times for their office hours. There are over 600 of you enrolled in this course. So in order to ensure that you get a prompt response to your question, please do kind of refer to this email question guide here. Obviously, with any urgent issues or concerns, please email me and let me know. But for some things, you might get a faster response if you reach out to someone else first. So for example, with a lot of like computer or internet types of issues, again, obviously if it's urgent, like if this comes up during an exam, you can email me to let me know. But at the same time, you might, go ahead and start a for help ticket with TLOS or call them or email them. A lot of times that's just not something I can fix. So you can email me to let me know that that's going on. But again, a lot of times that's going to be something that you need to work out with TLOS. Same with Canvas. Sometimes it's an issue on our side of things. Sometimes it's an issue on the student side of things. Again, if it's an issue on our side of things, myself, Michelle or Sahar will work through to get anything fixed or any links updated that we need to. But sometimes that might be something you actually need to reach out directly to Canvas support for. They do have a 24/7 chat line that you can hop onto if you have an issue, and they're usually pretty quick about getting back to you. I do have some frequently asked questions down here. So before you reach out with an email, you might just double check and see if it's already answered in this frequently asked section. that might just answer it for you right there. If not, again, you can feel free to follow up as need be. One thing I do want to highlight real quick, this is a question I get sometimes, is why can't I move on in the course? So I do have the modules kind of set. So we're doing module 1 this week, and then we'll move on to module 2 next week. And I do have it kind of structured at that pace, and that is intentional. So I understand that many of you are probably taking the online course because you want the increased flexibility, and I totally get that. On the other hand, too much flexibility and too little structure can sometimes be harmful and actually be a hindrance for your learning. In particular, if I let you just do the whole course at once, I'm worried that you probably won't learn the material very well, A. And also B, if you try to do, a ton of modules here during this first week, you might technically get through the material and complete all the quizzes, but by the time you get to the exam or the final, you'll have forgotten most of it, and so it won't actually be that beneficial for you. So I do want us to kind of move at this pace of one module per week. And then there are some other kind of frequently asked questions down here if you want to take a look at those, as well as tips on how to study for exams. There are also some helpful resources down here, again, including a link to our course syllabus and schedule, which you can also get to on the left-hand navigation panel. The VT Academics Success Center is great if you want tips on studying in general or tutoring help. The Learning Scientist is a website that has some science-backed study tips. Here's a handout that I made on joining a research lab. So if you're interested in joining a research lab in psychology, you're just kind of interested in how to get started in that can be a good resource to check out. And then if you're interested in some careers that have to do with psychology, here's an online website that has information on a ton of different psychology-related careers, kind of how to get into those careers, what education is required, kind of the outlook, the projected outlook for those careers, etc. All right, let's go ahead and check out our Module 1 page. So again, there are 14 modules in this course. They're all kind of set up similarly. This one is on the history and philosophy of psychology. So kind of what is the field of psychology and how did we get to where we are today? You can see our learning objectives up here at the top. Links to our readings. Again, the readings are going to come from this free resource called the NOBA Project. So they're just web pages that you can read. I do think these will be helpful for you. They give just kind of some additional information, context, and examples that I can't maybe quite cover as comprehensively in the lecture videos. So please do keep up with the readings as well as the lecture videos for each week. But the exam questions are primarily going to come from the lecture videos. For each module, there's going to be about 2 to 5 required module videos. It just depends on kind of how much content we have to cover. I've tried to keep the videos relatively short, about 10 to 15 minutes-ish for each of the different videos. So hopefully it's a little bit more manageable than just one super long video. For this week, we have two videos. And then down here, we have some supplemental videos. So these are not required. This is just kind of if you want to learn more. So that could be, if maybe you just found a topic really interesting and you just kind of want to learn some more about that, you can watch a video if I've got a video up on that particular topic. Or it could just be if you want some additional study practice, like when we get to talking about action potentials. And if you haven't learned about action potentials before, and maybe you just kind of, again, want to see another example or want to hear somebody else talk about it or just get a little bit more information to help you understand it more fully, that can be a good resource for you to use. So again, these supplemental videos, they're not required, but if you want to learn more, you just feel like you need some additional help with studying, those can be a resource to check out. And then down here I have 2 sections, test yourself and apply it. Again, these are not required, but I think you will find, I hope you will find them to be helpful for you in your learning. So this test yourself section, this is kind of what I want you to be able to do. So I would encourage you to see if you can actually do these things, if you can actually answer these questions. And even though the exams are open note and open book, I'd really encourage you to see if you can answer these questions without looking at your notes. That's a good cue for if you've really sort of encoded that information, if you've really learned that information. If you have to look in your notes for everything in order to answer these questions, that might be a sign that you really haven't fully grasped the material and you might not do as well on the exam. Because again, the exams are going to be primarily more application-focused questions. So you're going to need to really understand the concepts in order to be able to apply them to examples. And so kind of with that, I have this apply it section down here so that you can actually practice applying some of the material. Sometimes it might be kind of in more of a study focused way. Sometimes it might just be more of a fun activity that you can try. Again, this is optional, but you might find it to be fun or to be helpful additional study practice. For this particular section, I have the apply it section is, if you want, you can watch these faculty videos. So we have some really wonderful psychology faculty here at Virginia Tech, and some of them have made videos for you, kind of like this video, where they just introduce a little bit about themselves, what they research in their labs, and how they got to be a psychology professor in the first place. So if you're just kind of interested in that, if you want to learn more, or again, if you're interested in joining a research lab at some point, these can be great videos for you to check out. I will be highlighting these videos again as we move throughout the course. So for example, when we get to the section on clinical science, you'll see Dr. Rosanna Bro's video again. But I've got all the videos compiled for you now here in this first module, just so you kind of have them all in one place if you would like to check those out. And then lastly down here, we've got the link to the quiz for the module. Again, the quiz is going to be 8 questions worth half a point each, or 4 points total. You've got 30 minutes to complete it once you start, and you can take it up to 2 times. So if you don't get the score you want the first time, you can always take it again. And you can take the quizzes late. So again, the quizzes do have due dates associated with them. It's going to be about 1 quiz per week, since we're doing 1 module per week. But you can make them up late. You'll get a half point deducted for each day late, and that is capped at no more than 3 points off. So you can always earn at least 1 point for the module quizzes if you take them at any point in the semester. And again, the module quizzes are required. So you have to take the module 1 quiz before you can move on to module 2. So just as an example, real quick here, in my little student version of this Canvas site, my little fake student person that I made has done the prerequisites to get to module 1, but hasn't taken the module 1 quiz yet. So you'll see it's not letting me move on to module 2. It's saying module 2 hasn't been unlocked. I'm not sure why. It should tell you the actual prerequisites down here, and I'm not sure why it's not doing that on this page, but it usually should tell you if there's which requirements you need to complete. But you can also see that if you go to the modules tab over here, you can see all of our modules, and you can see again, for my little fake student person here on Canvas, you can see I've done the syllabus quiz, I viewed the module 1 page, I've viewed the module 1 quiz, but I haven't taken it yet, and so it's not letting the rest of these unlock for me. Once I complete the module 1 quiz, it should let me move on. However, again, note that module 2 will not unlock until next week on January 26th. So if you can't move on to the next module, chances are either you A, need to complete a prerequisite still, or B, maybe that module just hasn't unlocked yet in the schedule. So you can double check, kind of troubleshoot both of those first. If you think that you should be able to move on to a module and you can't, please just reach out to, again, either myself, Michelle, or Sahar. Let one of us know, and we will be happy to help you get set up with that. But I think that's all the information I wanted to cover in this video. Again, obviously, if you have additional follow-up questions, please feel free to reach out. Don't forget to shoot us a quick email with your name, your major, your year, and a fun fact if you would like to get a bonus point. And I hope that you enjoy the course this semester.